Well, cool, man. I'm excited that
Cool, man.
Grace hates it when I call her man. Well, cool. Well, cool. I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited that we finally got you on the show.
It's about time.
It's about
Should have been
time.
guest number 1.
Oh my!
Who's your right-hand woman? Not Grace.
Yeah, well,
just kidding, guys.
When Grace would ask me, well, when am I going to be on the show? I'd be like, I'm saving the big guns for later. I'm saving
whatever you got to tell me.
Oh, man. We were just talking about engagement rings before we got on the show. What kind of, okay, so this is a hot topic among young ladies, right? Do we go cubic zirconia? Do we go lab grown diamond? Do we go natural diamond? And then, or do we just go like the rubber ring that people wear these days?
I can't even believe you would bring that up.
I'm serious. I'm sure that a lot of ladies, young ladies are out here going through this same dilemma. Like I want to break the ice with some real relatable stuff.
No, I just meant the rubber. That's absurd. Well, okay. Admittedly, everyone, whatever you choose is very personal to you. And if the rubber ring fits that bill for you, then more power to you. I personally, that's not me. But that I feel like that's something that you're aware of. Yeah. Because you just know that that's who I am. Yeah, and that's all that matters. But as far as the like diamond or gemstone goes, I don't know. I feel like at one point I was hell bent on having a natural diamond, mostly because I've always followed this jeweler that I've fallen in love with. It's the Clear Cut, if you guys want to look at her up. But they're based out of New York.
She wages war.
Oh my gosh.
Because I follow her only because I know you like her stuff. And she wages war on
the lab-grown diamonds. Yeah, she actually wages war on them so much that if you order a ring or a piece of, a ring, an engagement or wedding ring from her, she will ship you a free lab-grown diamond of the same carat cut and clarity as your wedding ring in a little baggie because literally it's so worthless to her for free. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, that way when you're on vacation and you're going swimming in the ocean, like just wear the lab-grown one. It looks the exact same as the real one that I sold you, and I'll give it to you for free. Yeah. That's how worthless this is.
Like, I know. She's a savage. War, but I like her company because she's super passionate and knowledgeable about what she does. And it's a primarily female owned and operated team. So I think that's cool. And it's like her office is super cool. It overlooks Rockefeller Center. Like it's just cool. I don't know. But like the older that I get and the more that like I start to actually break down the numbers and finances and like, okay, I could spend $45,000 on a ring, which I'll wear for the rest of my life, or I could spend $15,000 on the same style, exact same diamond, like cut, clarity, color, whatever, and then use the other $30K for a down payment on a house or a car or vacation or wedding or whatever, So yeah, I don't know.
You're starting to think about it more practically.
The draw to natural diamonds is that they hold their value over time. Yeah. So I have a couple pieces. Actually, the earrings, if you're watching, and the ring that I'm wearing now are both heirloom jewelry pieces from my grandma's mom. And they're like naturally grown diamonds and real gold. So I know that those have appreciated in value over time. And other than like knowing that they are of high value, like it doesn't really add any more. Yeah. Like I'm not going to go sell these because they're important to me. I think that's what, heirloom jewelry is good for, is that it holds sentimental value instead of like, in addition to with these specific pieces, but it's like real value too. Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, so I don't know, whatever you feel like, you're the one paying for it. So as long as like we decide on something that I like, then
I think about that a lot though. That is that's the only thing that I think about is like, when if it becomes an heirloom that you pass down to like a daughter or somebody, like, is it weird to pass down something like a fake? And because the other thing I struggle with is is like, if I'm not buying a natural diamond, then like spending any significant amount of money on it makes me mad.
Yeah,
like, what do
that's
you
true.
mean? Like,
well, especially because that's part of this girl's markup is that, or this girl's like point is like these jewelers who are selling you these lab grown diamonds, like you literally create their worth because there's an infinite supply of these diamonds.
Yeah.
So they are marking up these diamonds like literally, like the diamond might be worth $500 and they're marking it up for $15,000. So what she's saying is like the markup on natural diamonds is much, much less, and they'll actually hold their value over time.
Well, their value is just based on something. It's based on
yeah,
scarcity.
I mean, it's still kind of stupid. The reason why natural diamonds are like, worth
whatever they're worth,
because they manipulate that too. But at least like the difference between their worth and what you're paying for it is smaller.
Yeah.
Versus like the worth of a lab grown diamond and what you're paying for the lab grown diamond, it could be a $14,500 difference. Yeah. And then if you were to ever go to sell it, like let's say that, God forbid, we were in a terrible, terrible place and the last thing was my wedding ring and we needed to sell it for some cash or whatever, like you'd bring your lab grown diamond to the like jeweler and they'd be like, "Oh, sir, this isn't worth anything." Like, I don't know. That's not really something I think about often, but for extreme example.
So you mentioned potentially like, like in this theoretical example, like I could pay $45,000 for a natural ring, or I could pay $15,000 and take the other 30 and put it on a house or put it towards a wedding. Like, so growing up, like, what was were you one of the girls that like, dreamed about the big wedding that you would have someday, or are you like, where do you stand on that stuff?
So I have a really big family on my dad's side. My dad is one of 2, 3, 4. My grandpa, his dad, is one of 12. And so my dad has 47 first cousins.
That's insane.
Just on one side of his family. And then if you imagine, right? So it's my grandpa's generation, which is 12. My dad and all of his cousins, which are 47. And then now they're all in their like anywhere range from like 30s to 60s. So they all have kids. And then even now, some of their kids are starting to have kids.
Yeah.
So I have a huge family. And those are the Frisellas, which if any of you guys are from St. Louis, you probably have crossed paths with one of us, whether you realized it or not, because obviously maiden names and different stuff in there. But my parents, I think, were the last wedding to have like every single aunt, uncle, cousin and they got married in 1998. So I think they had like 350 people at their wedding, which is just absurd.
That's a big
wedding. It's a huge wedding. And obviously weddings were way less expensive than they are now.
But that still would have been very
expensive. I know. But no, I to answer your initial question, I've never been a really like girly girl like that. The only thought that I really put into it was like, will I have a big wedding? And just because of the size of my family, my answer was always probably so.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, the more that I have like watched people go through weddings, been in weddings, like talk to my girlfriends about how much they spent on their weddings. Like there's absolutely, and like they only had between 100 and 200 people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but there is no way that I am having, my mom's friend from grade school who I haven't spoken to since I was 5, who she's still best friends with, come to my wedding, pay $80 for her to eat and drink all night. And then I'll have to introduce her to you because she's never met you before.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know. I just feel like weddings, and this is like kind of like divisive in the wedding space, but I just feel like weddings are there's so much a celebration for the relationship of the people who are getting married. And I think that people nowadays, especially with like social media, it's just become like, let me throw all of this money into this wedding so that I can take pictures and show off how cool my wedding was. Like,
yeah.
And it doesn't, that's literally so far from like what the point of a wedding is. Like, I want to be able to enjoy myself on my wedding day and not be like stressed about like, oh, like, are the centerpieces perfect? Oh, this like tablecloth was the wrong shade of whatever green. Yeah. Like, that's so insignificant to me. Like, I know it matters a lot to some people and they've thought about it like their whole life, but like truly, I mean, we talked about like just doing a small like elopement ceremony somewhere, whether that be like, I don't know, like in the United States, out of the United States. The only drawback that would, like I have towards doing a destination is my grandparents. I really want them to be there.
Yeah.
My grandpa has told me his whole life, or my whole life, that his only goal is to live long enough to dance at my wedding. So like
Grandpa Pete,
yeah,
he's a man.
I know, which is so cool. My grandparents are total badasses. They like, we can get into that later, but they are just so cool, and they're in their 80s, but you never know it. They like look and act like they're in their 60s. So they're amazing, and I'm so grateful that I've had so much time with them, and I hope for another 20 years with them. That would be amazing.
Grandpa Pete is the man. Like so is Grandpa Frisella, if I'm being honest. But Grandpa Pete, I remember we were sitting in a coffee shop in
Oxford,
Mississippi.
That's where my brother goes to school.
And I'm sitting there, and I can't remember how this started, but he just looked at me, and he looked at his wife, Bev, and he's like, he told me, Mark, I've been with her for 60 years or whatever it was, like
65, I think.
Yeah,
now.
Mark, we've been married 65 years, and you know what? I wish I had 65 more with her. And I'm like, oh,
I know.
Oh, that hit me so deep. I will never forget that. It hit me so deep. I'm like, man, that is amazing to feel like that. Like, he just volunteered that to me. Like, I'm such a romantic about that. Like, my parents been married for like 35 years, and it's amazing. Like, they went through losing a child, and that's statistically very unlikely. Like, it just
totally.
And that really inspires me. And then when he said that to me, I just swear, I was like, I wanted to hug him right there. Like, that is amazing that you still. Anyway, he's the man.
He is. He's amazing. Yeah, they got married when they were 18. They're high school sweethearts. And then my grandpa joined the Marines and was deployed for 3 years. And then he got out of the service pretty quickly after that. So, and then they moved. Gosh, they had my grandma had like 4 kids, I think, by the time she was like 20.
They only have 4, right?
No, they have 5.
Oh, got it.
My mom was like 5 years younger than the previously youngest child. So yeah, they have 5 kids, but my grandma had kids at like 20, 22, 24, 26. And like she was a young mom. And I think she like worked some. They had an embroidery business for a while, and then my grandpa was in real estate. But I think a lot of the time she spent staying home with the kids. But my grandma and grandpa, the reason why I'm so close with them is because my mom and dad worked. Well, my mom worked part-time when I was a baby, but my dad has always worked full-time. And my grandparents were like my nanny because they lived in St. Louis with me. So like every day, almost from when I was like 0 to 5, I spent at their house.
Really?
So like it was just the best like memories with them, and they're very much so like my comfort like blanket. I don't know. Whenever amazing. I'm having a bad day, I just call them and they always make it better. I don't even tell them that I'm having a bad day. Like I just hearing their voices and like talking to them about what they're doing just like makes me happy. I don't know.
I love them both.
They're the best.
Bev is crazy. I remember I remember when the Twitter files were coming out and Bev was all over that
My
stuff.
84-year-old
She's
grandma.
84 years old. She's like, she would come up to me at dinner and kind of like really sneakily say to me, "Did you see the latest Twitter files release?" I'm like, no. And I'm like, crazy. I know why Kara is the way she is. Oh my gosh, your grandma.
You should have Kara on the podcast.
I totally should. I really. So would you say that that Grandpa Pete and Grandma Bev, that they had a bigger impact on your life than the Frisella grandparents, or is it?
I think it's just different. Yeah. Like, I had a very emotional connection with my mom's parents. My dad's parents, like, they were a little more like emotionally removed, but I still learned a lot from them. Like, my dad's dad was a super influential person in the St. Louis community. He was a small business owner. He owned his own electrical contracting company. And he lived on the Hill, which is like our Italian immigrant neighborhood, which I grew up on, living across the street from them for the first like few years of my life, which was kind of cool to have my grandparents right across the street. But my grandpa he's very Christian, very, very Christian. And
yeah, he's amazing. Like he'll just be like out of nowhere, "Amen."
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. But he has always been very open about that. And just like, I know that in past episodes, you've talked about like how when you meet someone you can just tell like they exude like Christian values, and like Janice, you can tell, and Maggie, you can tell. Like, my grandpa is like that. And there's not many men that I've met that are like that.
Yeah.
But he was, I keep saying was. He's not passed, but he had a really awful head injury.
Yeah, he has a traumatic brain injury.
He has a TBI. It really changed his personality and being. So I shouldn't say was, because he's still very much so with us. He's just not the same outward personality that he was at one point in time. Yeah. So anyways, but yeah, no, he would like, I remember one day he called me and was like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I paid your tuition. So like, you don't have to worry about it. And your parents don't have to worry about it this year. Like, work hard and do your best, and like, I'll talk to you later." Like, just like out of the blue. But normally, like, he would do stuff like that in St. Louis and never tell a soul. Like, he was one of the most generous people I'd ever met. And nobody knew, because it was like part of his values, and he lives so closely to the Bible that like he was like, do good, but don't do it for the recognition. Do it because it's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. Like, and so that was very much him. So I know that I mentioned earlier that he was one of 12. We do Christmas, Memorial Day, and Easter with my dad's side of the family, the whole extended family. So we have like gatherings of like 100 to 200 people at those holidays. But at Christmas, when my great grandma passed, her inheritance was left to give Christmas gifts to all the little kids in the family. And when that inheritance ran out, my grandpa stepped in and bought all of the kids Christmas presents from Santa every year. And I didn't even know that he did that until after his accident, when my parents were talking about finances and if that was still going to be something that was a possibility.
Wow.
So
would you say, because like I from my perspective, it seems like especially your dad's side of the family, the Frisella side, they very much, it's like the type of traditional Catholic and Italian family that's like structured. Like, would you say that your grandpa was like the patriarch of the family?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell, like, honestly, ever since his accident, it's been sad to see like the effect, and amongst other things, because like obviously the like COVID happened, and a lot of people in my family had different views on COVID, and it unfortunately drew a lot of people to drift apart, which it's mended somewhat now. But yeah, for a few years there, man, it was really, really
because
rough.
Everybody realized what the truth was.
Well, we're not. I don't. But anyway, my grandpa was like very much so like the glue that held a lot of people together.
Yeah.
Because even like siblings who didn't necessarily always see eye to eye, like my grandpa was always, talking to them.
Squash that stuff.
Yeah, or like still had good relationships enough to like bring people together. But yeah, no, my grandpa is a savage. Like
he is a savage.
He always, from the time that I was alive, my grandma was not working. But like my grandpa worked so hard all the time. Like even well into like his late 70s prior to his accident, he would go into the office every day, and he was like in all sorts of committees, and he was involved in local politics. He was involved in like just he went to every single one of my cousin's hockey games his entire life.
Yeah.
He went there so much so that like he literally had a key to the back door of Afton Ice Rink. Wow. Like they like everybody in the rink called him Grandpa. Like they didn't even know his name, but they knew that no matter what, Grandpa was going to be standing by the locker room and like behind the gate that you weren't even supposed to be in because he had a key to the back door.
Yeah.
Like he was the type of person that he would drive me to preschool every day, and I hated, I don't know why, but I hated him driving me to preschool. And so the whole way from the Hill to Webster, I would cry and I would cry. And I was like 3, and he would sit me in the front seat, and like it was totally illegal. I was such a small child. Like I would be sitting in the front seat and I would just be bawling. And instead of like consoling me, he would literally start like wailing back at me. Like literally he'd be like, yeah. But like he also, like my older cousin is like 6 years older than me, I think. And he went to this school called the college school, which has a very different approach about like how you educate, and they're almost like a Montessori school, if you know what that is. Mm-hmm. It's like you do math and English inside, but then like you go on field trips and like learn applied sciences actually in the field, and just all this different stuff. It's just a different approach. It's kind of, they also like believe in more so of like the gentle parenting, like you don't really tell your kid no, like it's really? It's kind of more like,
that's weird,
progressive in that sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, my cousin went there and he was like acting out one day. And so they called my grandpa, and my grandpa showed up and walked down the hallway, like pulled his truck. I don't even think he I don't even think he like put it in park. He might have just like pulled the like e-brake and just went inside, whatever. So he like went inside, and the teacher was like, "Hey, Mr. Frisella, like, Dominic's acting up today, whatever." And so he's like, "Come here." So he pulls him outside. My grandpa takes off his belt, whoops him right in the hallway.
No way.
Yeah, whoops him in front of the teacher, the whole class, like, and then he sent Dominic back into the room, and he's like, "It won't happen again." And he left, and like the teacher was mortified. I mean, he was like,
no
yeah, oh yeah. The teacher was like, I don't think they ever called my grandpa again after that.
What? Oh, he's
not saying that I condone that, but yeah, just to like give a testament. Like my grandpa was old school. Like he was old school. So
man.
But yeah,
that's so funny when you say that. He's like, man, there's some men in your family that I just really admire a lot. Like, your grandfather's definitely one of them. And I didn't even get a chance to know him before his TBI. But like,
yeah,
I mean, every single person that I've ever met in your family talks about him the same way, which is just,
I know it does make me sad, really. I and truly, like, Mark, we were laughing about this with Jack earlier. Mark, on our very first date, asked me what the first question that he asked me, like showed up to our first date, and he was like, "What's the hardest thing you've ever had to go through?" Which, what the hell of an opener. But
hey, I just want to get straight to
I don't think you small talk very well. If that's a sign to anyone looking to befriend Mark, he just cuts right to the chase. But no, I responded with my grandfather's accident. So So what we know about the accident is that, so for reference, like prior to this TBI, my grandpa weight trained 3 times a week. He walked 3+ miles a day around Tower Grove Park. He was 75, I believe, but he could have told you he was 60 and you would have believed him. He was always like bronzed by the sun, like jacked, and he always ate like my grandma's home cooked food and just took really, really good care of himself. When he was younger, he was a Golden Glove boxer and a semi-pro soccer player. So like he was always, all while he had 4 kids. So he was, really healthy, and mentally completely like with it as a 30-year-old, like just with it. They lived in this house with the most beautiful backyard. They put in a deck and they had like a couple $100,000 of like yard work put in the back because they just loved to sit on their porch and enjoy it. And they were at the point where it's their like forever house, so why not? And so they had this waterfall that went down this like their backyard was a complete hill. So like those waterfall feature at the top and then these massive stone steps that were probably 6 to 8 inches thick each. And they were huge. They were like the size of this table. So my grandma was out of town with my mom actually, and they were out for a work trip, and my grandpa was home alone, and he was like watching someone's dogs for them, like dog sitting. So I don't know if we don't know what happened to provoke him to go outside. He also is the type of person that type of guy that just peed outside all the time. So it may have been that he just like literally went outside to take a leak and like check the animal trap at the bottom of his yard because he would like catch feral cats or whatever, I don't know, raccoons or possums or whatever that were like messing with his bird feeders. So we have no idea like what caused him to go outside, but somehow he like walked to the end of the hill and it was raining. And when he was walking back up the hill, he had one foot on the step and one foot in the mulch and slipped. And we think that because he had just had a shoulder replacement surgery a couple of months prior, he didn't want to land on his arm or his shoulder, so he rotated a weird way, and then his head hit the step above it, and he was unconscious outside in the rain for 12 hours with nobody knew that he was there because my grandma was out of town. So again, going back to like how connected my grandpa was, he was having some work done on his property. It was supposed to be like restaining his deck. And so the guy who was doing it, he knew. So the guy like knocked on the door, heard the dog inside going nuts, walked in. The dog had like peed and pooped all over the house. There was like half-eaten dinner on the counter still. And like he just could sense that something was wrong. So he like walked outside and found my grandpa, like just really awful scene. He was driven in like as fast as possible to the nearest hospital. They removed a piece of his skull, and he actually had like 2 hematomas, which are like massive brain bleeds on his brain because of how hard he hit. It actually like ricocheted off of his skull. So they took his skull off to like help with the swelling, and now he has like it was like months and months and months before it started to like go back down. And man, watching him, they literally attributed the only reason to him being alive and surviving was because he was physically fit. Yeah. Like had he not been as physically fit as he was, they told us that he would have like died. Yeah. But yeah,
that's so nuts.
It was a crazy, crazy. Like I remember, like I can tell you exactly where it was when my cousin called me and was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry about your grandpa." And when the way that he phrased it made it, because it was Carter, and it's Carter's grandpa too. So I thought it was like my other grandpa, and so I called my dad and I was like, "What happened?" And he was like, "Oh no, Grandpa Frisella." He told me the whole story, and I just like lost it. Just I think the fact that he was out there for so long.
Yeah. That's the hard part to think about. Yeah.
Is just like so awful.
The 12 hours.
But also like knowing the impact that he had on everyone in my family, how close, like my dad and him would talk multiple times a day, every day. Like they had a really great relationship, and just seeing like how the dynamic both in my immediate family and my extended family has changed since then has been like really sad. And it makes me sad that like no one has really like stepped up and tried to like take
Yeah.
that, fill that role. But it's
It's
huge
crazy how
shoes to
powerful.
fill.
Yeah, it's huge shoes to fill, and then it's really crazy how powerful like one personality can be. Like I
Mhm.
said, that kind of reinforces it's huge shoes to fill. You know who I think about though when you mentioned like how generous he would be and he wouldn't tell anybody about it. Like your cousin Andrew is for sure
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. Like I know him, and there's like little pieces that I see in other people. Like your dad
Mhm.
kind of steps up in some play. Like it takes several men of your family right now to fill the
To fill the
shoes
shoes
that
of.
your
Yeah,
grandfather
for
used to
sure.
walk in. But Andrew's for sure so much more generous than people know,
Yeah.
and that he'll ever tell anybody. And that is something that I like bringing that up every chance I get, because so many people have a negative perception of him and they
Mhm.
like have no idea. He's one of the most nicest, generous people that I've ever met. But as far as being involved in like local politics and stuff like that, he's like, you guys are fending for yourself out here.
Yeah. Well, Andrew and Sal, like they both really looked up to my
I
grandpa a
know.
lot because out of the 12, Jim and John
When we say
were the
Andrew too, we're
closest.
talking about Andy
Andy
Frisella.
Frisella.
You guys would
Yeah.
know him as Andy Frisella, but
I've called him Andrew my whole life, so calling him Andy is a little
yeah.
weird. He's like corrected me before when I try to call him like Andy in the office. He's like, "No, it's Andrew." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
He's trying to. I didn't know. It was weird. I didn't. Whatever.
Yeah.
But
Everybody here calls you Andy. Yeah.
yeah. But no. So Andrew and Sal's dad and my grandpa are brothers, and that's our family connection. But they were like super tight, and Jim is a lot like
Jim is a
John
savage.
C.
Yeah.
But Sal and Andrew also looked up to my grandpa a lot. And like when he had his accident, like they were consistently visiting him in the hospital. And
Really?
yeah, like I would see them there a lot. They really like had a strong relationship with them. My dad too was like their third brother. So
Oh yeah. I
um,
remember when we first started dating that Sal was like, listen, I don't think you understand who her father is to me.
yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like,
Yeah.
no, he pulled me up. And then Andrew too, when he finally realized that we were dating, like, no, I don't think you understand who her father is to me.
Yeah.
That's what they kept saying. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, snap.
In my family, like, especially on that side more so, like family loyalty is the absolute number one value, like
Yeah.
above all. And so that was like,
You
yeah.
for sure have like a traditional Italian family,
Mm-hmm.
and it's cool because you have this influence from your mom's side's grandparents, and you have this influence from your dad's side's grandparents, and you grew up, well, at least you spent some part of your childhood on the Hill, which is, for those of you that don't know, is like just this super concentrated, culturally preserved neighborhood, Italian neighborhood in St. Louis, where like you go there's an Italian flag on every light post. All the restaurants are Italian. All the bakeries are Italian. The general store are Italian. Like it's
The
a
church is Italian and
the
they teach Italian in the school instead of
yeah,
Spanish. The
like
fire
it's
hydrants are painted like the Italian
the Italian
flag.
flag. Like it's cool to drive through. It's like almost like, it reminds me of New York City. They have like Little Italy.
Little Italy.
They have Chinatown.
Yeah.
They have like these distinct. So anyway, so spending some time on that, growing up in that neighborhood, and then having this really traditional Italian Catholic family. What traditions? Like we were talking about marriage earlier, and you were like, you know, marriage has just gotten away from what it's supposed to be. Well, as we like start to build a life together and stuff, like what traditions do you think you are going to take from your Italian heritage and your grandparents and I want to know, like, what kind of influence did that have on who you now are or want to be as an adult?
Well, I think that for me, like talking more so in my immediate family first, like my mom, dad, and my brother, we spent dinner together every night, no matter what. like every night, if I was a competitive gymnast growing up, and my practices often lasted like late into the evening, and my family is already home, but no matter what, they waited for me, and when I got home at 9, we ate dinner together at 9.
Mm.
Like, that was just something that my parents always made like an absolute non-negotiable. And even if the
I can
dinner
picture your dad being home and being so
hangry.
grumpy, being
Yeah.
so grumpy, like,
Yeah.
oh, I never get to eat in this dang
I
house.
know. Um, but no, I think it was really special because, like, otherwise we really wouldn't have spent much time together during the day.
Yeah.
Like, even if the dinner only lasted 15, 20 minutes, like, at least we had that together every
Mhm.
day. Um, and then as far as, like, the rest of my family, I grew up close with my cousins, and having, like, I know a lot of people who, like, don't even know their cousins, and that's such a weird
Yeah, I don't.
concept to me. Yeah. So even though into our adulthood, like, we might not be as close as we were as kids, like, I always really enjoyed, like, we would do Sunday dinners once a month. We would do, like, Christmas, like, all the main holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, all that stuff together, and I have, like, really fond memories of that, and I think it's important to let your kids know that, like, it's not just you and you like, Gina, our friend Gina talks a lot about the idea of the nuclear family in current society and how, like, people on the right tend to, like, push this idea of the nuclear family versus people on the left are trying to, like, change the idea of what the nuclear family looks like. But she takes, like, a third party approach of, like, the nuclear family is a failure. Like, it's setting people up for failure. We're not supposed to be this mom, dad, and child in a white picket fence isolated from the rest of society. Like, we're supposed to be, you know, this family that's you've got aunts, you've got uncles, you've got cousins, you've got grandma and grandpa, you've got neighbors, like, you have a village, and you talk about that a lot with Omen. But and I'm very, very fortunate. I've realized a lot as I've gotten older how special it is to have a family that's as large and connected and close as we are on both sides of my family. And truly, I think that's, like, the biggest blessing that I have been, like, given by God in my life, truly,
Yeah.
is my family. I'm so grateful for my family. Um, but I realized that, like, a lot of, like, people, my friends even, like, have not been afforded that same opportunity. So it's tough, right? Because you think about in society, like, a lot of people have no choice but to just raise their family with what they've got and who they've got. And sometimes that's a single parent household, and you just do the best you can. So I think it's cool what you're building with Omen to become a support system for those people who may not have been afforded the ecosystem that I have, and to inspire people to continue to build those ecosystems if they have the ability to do so within their own circle. So definitely preserving, like, family holidays. Like, I know that you hate it when I drag you to, like, my family functions, but
I hate
it's
it
really
less now
important to
than I did
me.
back then. I
um
really like your family now. I was really
yeah.
intimidated by it back then, though.
Well, for context, like, it was funny when Mark and I first started dating because Mark is a convicted felon, and he's, like, covered in tattoos, and,
And your
like,
dad is a former
my
police
dad my
officer
dad
and a
is
current judge.
and current judge and current prosecuting attorney, and no one in my family has tattoos. So it
Yeah.
was just, like, very opposite, like, background of, like, what like, anybody who I had, like, brought home prior was.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, like, and also you're older than me, so that was, like, another factor thrown into it, and we worked together, and, like, literally, like, I think going into first form, my mom was like, "Just take some time for yourself. Stay away from the boys."
Uh, uh, which, to be fair,
Um,
I did stay away.
yeah, well, I don't know,
Uh,
but yeah, so
Wait, but to your point though, I really do think about how, because I never had the kind of family or upbringing that you're talking about, but something which my foster parents are amazing.
yeah, they're
I had a
great.
foster family; they're amazing. I was very fortunate to, sort of land in their guardianship and their care. And so that's notwithstanding, but I certainly didn't have like what you're talking about, and I think about building. One of the things that I sort of romanticize with Omen is like building a village that our kids someday will like grow up in. Like I even think about sort of Enzo and the girls. So your cousin Sal's kids running around First Form, and like how all the executives there and all the people that work there, they all know the kids and the kids know them, and they have there's an abundance of people who are in their life that care about them, and that. So I think about that. I think about building this village not only for the members of this community, and so that the adults and the kids alike have sort of a village to grow up with and to go through life with. But I think about our kids running around, the coffee shop, and, knowing our regular cut, like Gary. Like our kids will walk in and they'll know Gary, sitting there reading his newspaper. Yeah. So I think about that a lot. And just to circle back a little bit, because I was looking for a specific, we were talking about just like kind of what traditions, that you're going to carry, you and I are going to carry into our life, that you've taken from your upbringing, because I literally admire it so much. I admire your family. I admire the structure, the size of it, the connectedness. And I, even though I never really had that, I want that for our future family. And the dinner every night thing is something that is powerful. I think that's a really simple but powerful tradition to carry. Your mom also does these like Sunday dinners. I'm gonna be honest. I wish she would do it every Sunday. I don't
she
know.
Would. She just doesn't want to bother you.
Listen, I'm just
Miss
gonna.
Kara, if you're listening,
I'm just putting it out there.
You
okay?
heard it here.
Listen, I wish you would do it every Sunday, because then we can just do every Sunday at Grandma's house, or or for now.
Oh, Miss Kara is gonna be the best grandma ever.
But for real, I mean, I love those Sunday, and I think that would be a really cool tradition. And we talk a lot. I talk a lot about like sort of the old fashioned way of doing things, and there's just something really charming about the old fashioned way of doing things. We've become so disconnected from one another, like families and friends alike. Like it doesn't matter. Like most people now are like, FaceTiming their mom is the same as stopping by and saying hello. That's not the same. It's not. It's not the same. But your family doesn't operate that way.
I think so. My grandparents, my mom's parents, they lived here for 50 years in St. Louis, and then when they officially retired, my grandpa still is not really retired, but quote unquote retired.
Yeah.
Just they built a beautiful 5-bedroom log home on the top of one of the Ozark Mountains that overlooks Table Rock Lake. It was so stunning. I wish they had it when we were together, because it was the most beautiful place. And they lived there for 12 years, and they sold it when they turned 80 and bought an RV and drove around the country to almost every national park and all these state parks. And just because my grandpa had gotten to travel worldwide a lot, and traveled a lot for his business, but my grandma had never really gotten the opportunity to do so because she'd always been at home with kids or working or whatever. And so they just hopped in the RV and they've been driving all around. Now I bring that up because currently they're parked in Mississippi. They love it there. The people are nice and the living is slow, and it really is very charming. Even though Mississippi is, I think, the poorest state or one of the poorest states in the U.S., I think it's really underrated, and people should visit it if you have the chance. But they love it. So they just like hop around between these 3 RV parks, because I didn't know it, but you can only stay at an RV park for like 2 weeks at a time. It's not like a trailer home.
Yeah, you can't live there.
Yeah. So they hop around between these 3, and they're all parked on the edge of this lake.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they just are content. And I'm so happy that they're happy, but part of me misses having them here so much. And I'm like, these could be the last like however many years of your life.
Yeah.
And I so wish that like I could just be
that they were around
and like see them all the time because they're so important to me. So, you know, I get that. Like I all that to say, like when we have kids, I don't think that we'll ever be somewhere that my parents are not, because
I can't picture that.
Yeah. At least like, you know, I think my dad's a few years away from retirement still, but like once they retire, I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. But whatever they do, it'll probably be around us or John.
Do your families really over the last year or so become quite the fan of the Ole Miss fans?
Oh yeah.
That's why your grandparents are in Mississippi.
They're not there for Ole Miss though.
But it's just coincidence that they landed there. But because your brother goes there, right?
Yeah, my brother goes to Ole Miss. He is in his second year of school. But man, I went to Mizzou, so I had a small taste of SEC football. But SEC football in the South, is just entirely different like thing. And Ole Miss is interesting because traditional tailgates, I feel like, are usually in like a parking lot, or like at Mizzou, they were in the backyards of fraternities, but throw these huge parties. But at Ole Miss, they have what's called the Grove, which is like this big quad area on their campus that's like tree lined, whatever. And these Southern parents, man, they are so avid about football that there's literally companies in Oxford, which is the city where Ole Miss is, that will set up your whole tailgate tent for you. Like they're like contracted to do it. They'll like wire up a full-size flat screen TV, put in a couch, like all the Thursday before the tailgate. So like
that's insane.
Just to secure your spot.
Yeah.
But there's actually quite a few St. Louis kids who go to Ole Miss because it's just a straight drive down Highway 55.
Yeah.
It's only like 5.5 hours. It's pretty easy, but they have like a whole St. Louis tent that you have to like buy a membership to be a part of. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like the girls down there, they get so dolled up. Like it is so Southern charm. Like they have the white boots, they have the frilly dresses. Like the first time that I went down there, and that if you know me, like that is just so not me.
Yeah.
And the first time that I went down there, my mom was like, "You gotta get all dressed up. You gotta be so cute like the girls, or you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb." And I'm like, okay. So I like got this dress on Amazon. It was way too big. I had just cut all of my hair off and I didn't know how to style it. Or no, I forgot my blow dryer or something. And I had bangs that needed to be like curled. And it just, all these girls had this like long, flowy, blonde, curled extension hair. And like, I just like looked so out of place. And I was so uncomfortable. I had like Converse on.
Oh no.
You were there. It was the one that you went to.
Yeah.
So, after that, I was like, F this, I'm wearing jeans. So since then we got to go this year. I didn't make it down to Ole Miss campus this year, but Ole Miss made it to the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, and I was fortunate to be able to fly down and go.
Yeah, it's so funny how gung-ho everybody became over Ole Miss
but
real
it's
quick.
Fun. It really is fun.
It is a lot
like,
of fun. I just like supporting John. John's like he's like one of my favorite young guys.
I know.
He's such a stud. So so you only have one sibling.
One sibling.
And it's John.
Yep.
So what's he up to? He was majoring in business, and now he's criminal justice.
Mm-hmm.
And John goes down. This guy is just like the Prez. Like he just is he has Dave Portnoy energy. Okay. I'm serious. He has Dave Portnoy energy, but he's is he, 20 years old?
He's 20.
He's 20 years old with this just I don't give a it's just I love this kid.
Wow.
And lo and behold, we find out, first of all, I find out that his first year in college, he's joining a fraternity. I'm like, that's really lame.
Well, let me tell you the story.
Hold on. I'm like, that's really lame. I think that's kind of I'm not, I'm just not a group guy. But that's ironic. I lied because now I have the men's group. But I think that that's lame anyway, fraternities. But I went along with it. The next year, what do we know? They vote him the president of his fraternity. And I'm just like, that checks out. That 100,000% checks out. This kid is just down there, just chilling, the most nonchalant attitude ever. And then Dave Portnoy energy all the way. And then I hear he's the president of his fraternity. And I'm just laughing in my head.
Me too.
Like,
that was a really unexpected something.
That is hilarious.
Well, because, okay, here's the more context to that story. John did not want to rush at all because he is the complete opposite of everything preppy, everything like he just was disgusted by it. Admittedly, I had dated this guy while I was in college who was like the traditional like douchebag fraternity guy.
Frat guy.
Yeah. So then when I brought John to Mizzou, I was like, look, this could be you. And he was like, fuck that. I am never doing that. Never.
But that's why it's so funny that he's the president
well,
now.
Here,
Because he's like the furthest thing from a frat
I know,
guy.
but I think that's actually good
too.
for that fraternity. But anyway, he's still very much so like does not fit that bill. And in the South, in the fraternities, there are like legacy fraternities on Ole Miss's campus that you can't get in unless like your dad was in there or you're from Mississippi or what. Like, so they're like, those are like the really like douchey ones. Yeah. But John's, so basically my mom and I were like on him. We're like, you gotta rush because here's what's gonna happen. Even if you rush and you hate it, you'll meet one other guy there that's rushing and also hates it. And you guys can at least be acquaintances, so you won't be like completely alone. You'll meet someone. You'll know someone.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. So he went to one party and he hated it. Yeah. He hated it. He was like, fuck this. I'm not doing it. I don't know what got, I think the only thing, he was like out at a bar with somebody and met the rush chair for the fraternity that he's currently in. And they had just gotten let back on campus from being banned for hazing like 5 years prior or something. And he clicked with the guys. And so he ended up going to this event that they had and they loved it. And they loved him and he loved them. And so he got a bid. And like, when I tell you that comparatively, like if you've never seen the movie Animal House, it's a little not PC currently, so just fair warning. But it is one of the funniest movies. Like Mark refuses to watch it, but I think it's just so funny.
Yeah.
But in the movie, there's like all these preppy, like super popular fraternities, and then there's this one like band of brothers hodgepodge, like the weirdo dorks of the fraternity that all get like thrown into this one house because they didn't get accepted anywhere else. And like truly. That's kind of what I pictured John's fraternity to be. Yeah. And all the other people, like the girls wouldn't pair with them for homecoming because they weren't cool. Like
Really?
Yeah. Like the guys.
And now he's the president.
Well, no. Listen. So they had like the lowest enrollment of any, because they were like just basically, they had just gotten back on. Like there was no upperclassmen to try to like recruit. So it was just sad. Like this is a sad little group. But John had a blast because he didn't feel like he had to like fit into a specific mold. Yeah. And that's the premise of the movie too, is like they end up like having the most fun, whatever. So they actually this year, when they rushed, had to turn like they had the highest number of people who picked them as their first choice.
Wow.
And now they have the largest incoming class of any of the fraternities on campus. Like they went from being like the like loser weirdos to being like the one that everybody wanted. But they're like, it's so funny because they'll like, all the girls will like hang out at the house, but then won't like tell anybody that they're hanging out there. Like they want to hang out with the Phi Tau guys because they're the most fun, but like they only like go to date parties with like the Sig Taus and the Pikes and like, you know, whatever. But like, they're like the side piece, but like they're like, I don't know. Funny. So anyway, my brother like went from not being like even wanting to rush to them becoming part of this like, you know, very be yourself type of fraternity. And then the day of the presidential election, his friends were like, bro, you should just run. He ended up getting 93% of the vote from the House to become the president. And he's like, well, I guess I'm doing it.
I guess I'm the
So
He is, dude.
I know.
Such
And
a
he's a
stud.
good person to do it because he really does have a level head, especially for a 20-year-old. Like, he's very like an old soul. My brother and I both like that, which is funny that like now, because growing up we were like polar opposites. I'm very type A, he's very type B. I like gave a lot of fucks about what other people thought and what I was involved in my grades. John like is really smart but just didn't really try in school and didn't care what other people thought, and like just wasn't, he just like kind of marched to the beat of his own drum. So like we were polar opposites, but we both like as adults have very level heads on our shoulders for people our age. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I like John, man. I like John. So you're an older sister, and you were mean to John.
Oh, I bullied the shit out of him.
Ah.
I did. We're 4 years apart. And it's just like just awkward enough of an age gap to where like he would be in 8th grade and he would be in 6th grade, so coming into middle school, and I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
And then I was a freshman in college and he was a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
So like we're like never at the same school. We never had the same friends. We never like just had like we were just so polar opposite personality wise that like we just didn't click.
Yeah.
Like we were just not each other's people growing up. And I don't know why I was so mean to him, but yeah, I really.
And now you guys are pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like you say that we're close. Like I don't have anything to
closer
compare.
Than me and any of my family members
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. But that, but also I know siblings who talk every day and like hang out and, so like it's a sliding scale, but like definitely we're closer now than we've ever been before. Yeah. And I think that the older we get, the closer we'll get to, because he's stepping into like adulthood and, thinking about more like, he's always been a very like analytical thinker, but like now he's starting to like think about bigger picture things than just like
what he wants to do with his life. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of shift gears here, but like on social media, you have like, I don't know, close to 100,000 followers on Instagram, and you have like, I think 20 or 30,000 followers on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's like something that's really popular right now. It's like this whole, everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be a content creator. First of all, how did you, get to 100,000 followers? Did you try? Was that what did you set out to be an influencer? And then, is being an influencer like really what everybody thinks it is? And like sort of where are you now in with respect to that? Is that a big piece of your life, or are you just doing something else and running your business on the side right now? Like talk a little bit about that, because I know everybody wants to have 100,000 followers. So
yeah. Well, also like it's so funny because when I meet people, that's like one of the first things that either they knew that prior and they're like, oh, they like bring it up, or they're like, oh, let's connect. And I bring up my Instagram and they're like, oh, wow, you're famous. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hardly. But yeah, no. So I never use social media. Like there are some people out there, like these mega influencers who are like, I've been YouTubing since I was 10 doing like get ready with me videos. Like that's not me. Sorry.
That's a fact.
That's definitely not me. I hated makeup. I hated dresses and girly things. Mm-hmm. I like books and sports and other stuff. But I always liked taking like cute photos and like used Instagram as like posting like the cute pictures from whatever life events I had going on. And I definitely consumed social media.
Yeah.
Vine was my era. You were not
I don't even know
around.
What Vine is. Yeah.
I know. I think that was when you were
in prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it really was a prime. Do you remember Vine, Jack? Yeah. Oh, it was just so good. And sometimes every once in a while, John and I, when we're together, we'll go watch like YouTube Vine compilations. It's just, they're so funny. But it's like an inside joke. Like if you weren't around for the era, you won't get it. But anyway, so watch that. And then so I wound up with a job at First Form. That's a whole long story. that I won't get into right now, but First Form was one of the first companies to really pioneer affiliate marketing using social media. And with that being said, a lot of their internal employees, they strongly encourage to build their personal brands on Instagram. It's a huge way that, the First Form community stays connected worldwide. It's how they get such a draw for Summer Smash and any events that they put on. And when they say, hey, we're popping up in Salt Lake City, Utah, they had 300 people show up because they're so strongly connected on social media. And so while I was there, I started to build my brand. And actually, it's funny because when I went there, I was in college still with full intent, planning to return to college in the fall. I was just working there over the summer. And they were like, you should really start posting on Instagram. It's really valuable. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to make a new Instagram because I don't want my college friends to see it. It's embarrassing. And they were like, we really don't recommend that. Like, you have 1,200 followers. You might as well just use that as like a springboard. And I'm like, yeah, but everyone from grade school, high school, college, like friends of friends, they all follow me. And like, that's just going to be embarrassing. And so they were like, okay, like you can make a new one. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But just know, like, it's going to be harder starting from scratch. So I did. And it was like G Frisella Fit or something. I don't know, whatever. So it was during COVID. So I was posting like home workouts and yoga and like whatever. And, getting a little bit of traction, but like slowly over time. Cause at first I tapped hardcore into the First Form community, and because they were so well connected. And also my last name is the same as Andy and Sal. So a lot of people were like, oh, who's this girl that just like randomly popped up? That's at First Form. And how I explain First Form, obviously there's like a lot of like facets to First Form. It's not just social media. There's a huge machine behind the business and like a lot of people that make it run and work really hard. But in a sense, like, have you ever heard of a content house?
No.
Okay, so in LA, there's this concept, and a couple other places too, like Nashville has them. But basically, like, influencers live in this house, and they all basically like play off each other and create content together.
Got it.
And they all have these big brands, and they just grow into like one another's like social channels basically and just blow up.
Yeah.
Because Tim has 100,000, Molly has 2 million, like James has 45 million, whatever. So they're all like posting with one another and building each other's platforms up. Well, that's kind of how First Form HQ was like.
Yeah.
While I started working there, I think I was one of the first women to work in that building. Like, I think there was like Paula and a couple of other like Seema and Taylor, a couple other women there before me. But like, I think I was like pretty early on in the number of women. So like, anyway, that to say, like, it was just an uncharted territory. Like, we were all just kind of posting and
like, but you came in and went 0 to 100,000 followers in less than a year.
Yeah, but okay, so
that's crazy.
Yeah, but okay,
you basically showed us all up. Like, we're all like sitting around. I remember sitting in the office and people would be like, "Dang, do you see Grace? She's at 40K. She's at 50K," and I'd be like,
we were together at that point.
I know.
We were praying on my downfall over here.
No.
But no, like, so anyway, the initial first probably 10K that I had was strictly because I was like in the First Form facility.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had like built up significant platforms, and I was just bouncing off of like that.
Yeah.
Then they introduced Reels. And I was like, oh yeah, like this is going to be fun.
This is like Vine.
This is like, yeah, I was like, this is funny. Like, it was in the time when it wasn't so like hardcore educational. And also like the fitness niche online is so like close knit. So like if you are a content creator in the fitness space, it's almost, I think arguably it's one of the fastest spaces to grow in, because like people who love fitness content love fitness content.
Yeah.
So like tap into a market where the community is already there. It helps with your growth. And then it was just like I just knew fitness and nutrition, so it was like easy for me to apply a lot of the trends that were going on to like fitness or nutrition somehow. And I had friends who were like willing to like be goofy and like Charlotte and be goofy and like do this fun stuff with me and make these funky like fun videos, and people just ate it up,
Yeah.
like ate it up. And so I think when I left the building, I had like 30,000 followers and I just kept like doing the funny reels. And at one point I was up to like 120,000 followers.
Yeah.
And it was, but then like, you know, also during that time was like one of the most like hard mental places I had ever been in, because I had just left my job and had no idea what I was going to do, but I wasn't happy with what I was doing. And then like not, you know, as someone who like I seek a lot of external validation, and for better or for worse, that's just like kind of, I was like a competitive gymnast, so it's like been ingrained in me since childhood. So then when I like didn't have a job and didn't have like something, a purpose or anything to like show up for, or people like telling me what to do or anything like that, I really mentally struggled. So I stopped posting a lot, and I ended up like going backwards and like losing a lot of my followers. And I also like just lost my love for fitness in a sense. So it just didn't feel as authentic to me to be posting about something when I just wasn't like showing up and living it myself day to day.
Yeah, but even at 120,000 followers, like you weren't making any money off Instagram. Like it's
No, it was never.
I think that people have this common misconception about influencers. Like if you have a lot of followers, like you just must be making money. Like
I wish it
and
was that easy.
yeah, and that's it. So now you're in this journey of trying to figure out like how to monetize your
Mhm.
platform, and how does this whole UGC content creator thing work, and
Mhm.
can this be a business? Do people make money doing this? But it's even still a lot of question marks. Like, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I wanted to pull out of you is like the reality. Like there's so many people that want to be an influencer, that think that they want this life. And it's like,
Yeah.
even at your peak with 120,000 followers, like I was there. You literally were making
Yeah.
$0 from
I
your
know. It's just
social
crazy.
media. And even now, and you've spent the last year or so really learning from people who do this. And even now, like you do okay. But like it's still hard. Like
Right.
it's still nothing that you're like,
Right.
oh, I can just quit all my work, my
Mhm.
real work, and just do this. Like you don't have that confidence yet. And
No.
you've been at it for literally trying hard to figure it out for like the past year. So that's something that I think is just it's useful to shed light on for people,
Sure.
because it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah. Well, I think too, but a lot of people get hung up on like the follower count, and I've actually made more money having less followers. Like I have less
Yeah.
followers now and I make more money now than I did
With the more, yeah.
in 2022 when I had 120,000 followers, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, I switched my niche. I started posting again. I do more like fashion and lifestyle stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll back though, you'll find all my fitness content there still. But yeah, so I've been trying to learn, and obviously like Instagram has changed a ton in the last, it's always changing. So keeping up with like I try not to keep up with the algorithm, because nobody actually knows what the fuck they're talking about when they say, oh, like there's all these people that are like in social media growth experts and they're like the algorithms change. I'm like, you're freaking
You're guessing.
foot from your
Yeah.
hand. Like, yeah, you're so full of it. But you know, so I try to just like make high quality content that feels authentic to me and just like run that game plan. Because it's all you can do. Like if you're gonna chase this goal that's always moving, you're never gonna like whatever. And you know, so I'm trying to just like figure out what exactly it is that I want to do, and just keeping my content broader has helped me. You know, people say like niche down, but I think that can be limiting in a sense, because if you niche down too much, like I was literally just on a call with a huge fashion brand, and they said that they were going to cut some of their content creators next season because they don't have a lot of beauty products, and there's like very beauty specific influencers that they were working with.
Yeah.
So like having a little bit, you know, for growth, it might be a little more detrimental to like your the speed of your growth because you aren't tapping into a specific market. But creating high quality content around different niches allows people to come and say, hey, can you do this beauty thing? Hey, can you do this fashion thing? Hey, can you do this fitness thing? You know, like
so
there's
it increases the likelihood that you can actually make money doing it.
Potentially. Yeah. I mean, there's not like a right or wrong way. That's the thing about social media is like, it's such a new space that like really the options are endless.
Yeah.
Like you can do it however you want. But no, you asked me like if it's my full-time job, and no, it's not. I work in social media as my full-time job.
Yeah.
Most of my income comes from being related in social media in some way, shape, or form. But like my stable, steady income comes from me doing social media for in-person clients that I have in St. Louis. So I'll go in and I will shoot video and photo for them, edit it, create a plan for it. And then depending on if they want me to, I'll go as far as like posting and responding to comments, writing copy, like doing all that stuff for them on a retainer. But like I've really tried to work hard, and it's my goal this year to make content creation full-time, like my career. And not to say that I'll abandon those clients because I love them and I like will always work with them until it comes to a point where it's not necessary anymore. But like really be the majority of my income.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because like a lot of something that people don't think about with being an influencer and being a content creator is that like your income is never consistent.
Yeah, you only eat what you kill.
Yeah.
You got to go out and get deals, get deals, and you got to put them on the calendar, and then you got to follow up, and then you got to get another deal.
And a lot of people think that, like, I don't know, I just had this common misconception that like I'm going to get a lot of followers and then I'm going to get a manager. Like there's going to be a manager that wants to work with me and secure deals. And like I knew people who like had managers and had similar follower counts to me, and like I was like, you know, this is just gonna happen for me, like, and it definitely has not. Like this is just not. I just thought it was gonna be like, I thought I was gonna be more like desired in that sense, more valuable to them. But like from the more people that I talk to, the more that they're like, no, like you literally have to be like an Alex Earl to like have managers want to work with you.
And you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not. Yeah.
And honestly, like that's a huge area that I'm hoping to step into this year. And part of it is because I just have not had the time to like sit there and just hash out all this stuff. But part of it is because I just like don't even know where to start, like reaching out to brands and stuff. So that's something that like here in the next few months is really going to become like one of my top priorities, is like trying to really reap the benefits of like the proactive outreach to brands and trying to secure more like brand deals. I just have it, like it's always held me back thinking that like somebody could say no, or the fact that like I have no idea what the going rates are because it's very like hush hush in the influencer industry, and so there's not much to compare it to, so you kind of just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. So like throwing out an astronomical number to this brand and having them like laugh in my face, like it's just so hard to like know your value in a sense when it's this wild west of like nobody really knows and everybody's just making it up. And like, I mean, you and I were talking yesterday about this girl who you said she was charging like X for her posts, and then her friend was like, oh no, you should be charging like 5 times that. And she was like, okay. So she sent it to this brand, and they were like, oh yeah, absolutely. So like then from then on, she was charging like the second rate, which was 5 times what she was charging before. And, you know, like,
and nothing changed.
So it's like, it's just so unknown. And I think that's what really like makes me hesitant in this space to like make big moves, because I just don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that nobody else knows anything about it either. And they're all just out there like
winging it.
Yeah. And like, I think about a lot. I'm like, there's somebody out there who's so hungry for like money or like deals or whatever, that they're like, they just like threw all of their pride aside and they're just like hungry. Like they are just reaching out to people. They don't care like who reaches back. They're like reach out to 1,000 people and one responds, and like, you know, like whatever. But yeah, it's not as like glamorous as people make it out to be. And also like St. Louis just doesn't have like, there's there's some cities like Nashville has a larger influencer population. New York, of course, LA, of course, like Austin has a decent size like influencer population, but in those cities, like it works to their benefit because they have not only do they have like flagship stores for brands, so like brands will host these like glamorous events that they'll invite them to, and they like meet other large influencers and can like network with brands in person, but like they also have a huge influencer network where they'll show up and actually have like people to take good photos, people to collaborate with, people to take good photos and know angles and know exactly like what's on trend or like what.
Yeah, like me.
Yeah, babe. Sorry, you're fired from your influencer boyfriend position. But yeah, you definitely, there's no, not to say that there's none. And I have to give credit where credit's due. Like there are a lot more influencers now in St. Louis than there was when I first started doing content creation. But like, I hardly know any people who make their majority of their living off of social media. And I just envy a little bit the people in those larger cities because they can ask each other like, you know, it's like graphic designers. Like we have a friend who's a graphic designer and he's like, yeah, there's a standard rate. Like this is the standard rate. And like, this is what they charge. Like there's just, I envy people who can like,
you're feeling your way through the dark.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's tough. And I think that's like the biggest struggle point for me right now.
See, my brain works the opposite where I'm like, okay, anytime there's a scarcity of something, that means there's an opportunity for me to set the standard, you know, and I think that's the case for you. And I think that you are in a position. I think this year is going to be really big for you. I'm really excited and I love being a part of the process and being the, you know, Instagram boyfriend and
trying.
Yeah. All right, dude, I want to sort of wrap this up with a couple things because man, truly, when I first met you, you were like the biggest fan of St. Louis. Like, you know, you're born and raised here. I'm not from here. So I would talk about it and you'd be like, oh, Forest Park and the Jewel Box and the zoo and the Blues and the Cardinals and, you know, and the Hill. And you showed me so much of St. Louis and you really opened my eyes to it. And you have a Grace's Guide. You know, you made a guide to Grace's Guide to St. Louis, which we gotta do
update,
2.0. Yeah.
It's on the list.
Yeah. So I guess just a real easy kind of surface level question, but I'm actually gonna go through and do like a little mini Grace's Guide to St. Louis. So if you guys come to St. Louis, all right, what is one like St. Louis activity that people have to do?
I think you gotta go to the zoo.
Gotta go to the zoo? Over the arch?
Yeah. There's not much to see. I mean, the arch is cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like don't leave St. Louis without going to the arch
because it's like
a
national park.
It is a national park.
Yeah.
But unless you're wanting to go up in the arch, which you can.
Which is trash. Don't do that.
It's just, I mean, if you are claustrophobic or you don't like heights, you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
And then the grounds are beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's not like you're going to like there's no restaurants on the water. There's no like, I don't know, like DC I've been to, and on the Potomac, there's like waterfront restaurants and like the mall. Like you can see the river from like the mall is what they call where like the Lincoln Monument is and stuff. Or Lincoln, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. But like here, there's not really that. I think they're working on it. I think there was just a huge like couple $1 billion bid that got put on like some land and like on the riverfront that they're going to try to develop, which will be cool. It's a private developer, thank God. But anyway, that's beside the point. The zoo right now is a #1 free attraction in the United States. So it's completely free. There are upgrades that you can do if you want. Like you can buy, I think it's like a $17 like all access pass to like the train, to pet the stingrays, to go to the sea lion show, to go to the they changed the children's zoo to like this dinosaur attraction, which my nephew absolutely loved. Oh my God, he was like roaring with the T-Rexes. It was the cutest thing ever.
Yeah.
But it was like, you know, the zoo, I don't know, I'm a kid at heart, and I think it definitely like is nostalgic for people and adults and
It's
kids alike.
incredible.
It's a really
It's
cool
one of the
facility.
nicest zoos in the country,
Mhm.
and it's 100% free. It's crazy. You just walk in
I think it's
any
second
day.
to the San Diego Zoo, like ranked of zoos.
As top zoos in the
Yeah.
country. Yeah. Okay. All right. So zoo is the number one most recommended St. Louis activity. All right. What about what about number one meal, number one restaurant? If you come to St. Louis, you gotta go eat here.
That depends who you're with, I think, because if you're with family, like that would be a different answer, like kids. But if it's like a date night or like adults, then either Katie's Pizza is a great restaurant or Louis on Demond.
Yeah, specifically the Ballpark Village location of Katie's
No,
Pizza.
they all provide a really good experience.
Yeah, but that one's fire.
It is fire. I mean, they just did the build out, and it was a beautiful build out. So definitely worth going. But
or Louis on Demond.
Louis on Demond.
Man, they do such
Wright's
a good.
Tavern is great too, but unless you know that you're coming like 4 weeks in advance and set an alarm for a reservation, you're probably not getting in.
Yeah, you ain't getting in at Wright's. But Louis on Demond is so nice. They do such a good job. Katie's does too. Okay. All right. Best place to get a cocktail.
Lazy Tiger is really great. It's in the Central West End. They make like really craft cocktails to the point where like literally like, you know, when you go to a restaurant, like an Italian restaurant, and like there's all these cheeses with names that you don't understand. So you're sitting like Googling under the table, like what does formaggio mean?
Yeah.
And it's like that at Lazy Tiger. It's like all these liquors and flavors that like you have literally no idea what they mean, but you just ask your waiter and he's like, oh, this is similar flavors to a pina colada. This is similar flavors to a Mai Tai. Like they'll tell you like, and then I just like always trust them. They're like, this is our most popular drink right now. If you like brown liquor or if you like light liquor. And I'm like, yep, give me that one. And it's always been really good. So they have really good cocktails. I'm trying to think. I mean, Katie's has really good cocktails too, honestly.
I mean, that's a good one. Yeah, but the thing about Katie's is they'll give them to you to go, and they can their cocktails now. I don't know if you saw that. It's really cool. Okay, so Lazy Tiger, that's a great rec. And then what was this one's gonna be hard. The last one, because there's really we have a bigger selection here in St. Louis of this specific thing than most other cities. But if you come to St. Louis, what's the number one sports game you have to go see live?
I think City Game.
Yeah,
I think City Game.
I agree.
I honestly,
I agree. We just got a new soccer team.
Yeah.
We've only had one season, and they're already the best.
They're so good. Yeah. Honestly, St. Louis, you really can't go wrong. It's similar to Boston in the sense that like St. Louis is a sports city.
Yeah.
Like it's very sports centric. And we took a huge blow when we lost the Rams. Like that was like really like a dagger to the heart for St. Louis. Like both like culturally and like financially. Downtown went so far downhill after that happened. And like this has been like a new renaissance era with the soccer team being downtown. And like just life being breathed back into the city again. But they really have done such an incredible job. The stadium is really cool. It's a square. So like the concept is really cool. But they also, what I really admire about them is they value small businesses so much that they made every single vendor in the stadium a small business that's already flourishing in St. Louis. Yeah. So like one of my favorite restaurants on the hill is called Anthonino's. It's Greek and Italian, and they have a Euro like stand in the stadium. There's a Mexican restaurant that has a stand. There's a Bosnian restaurant that has a stand.
Think about this. You know how when you normally go to a stadium, a sports stadium, every concession stand has the same menu, like
nachos,
it's like
hot dog,
nachos, whatever.
Soft pretzel.
In this stadium, every single concession stand is a one-off.
And it's a different worldly cuisine
that lives here in St. Louis. And St. Louis has an amazing food scene, like
the most underrated.
Yeah, one of the most underrated in the country, if not the most underrated. And so there's just such a variety of. It's so cool to be in that stadium. I agree. I'm so funny. It's funny that you said that because I know you're a big Blues fan.
I do love the Blues, but and I love the Cardinals too. Although the last few seasons they've just sucked, but. It really, I mean, even when you go to a game and the teams are losing in St. Louis, like it's still a fun game because St. Louis sports culture is just so like gung ho about the Cardinals and the Blues. But yeah, the city experience is
It's
very,
top notch right
very
now. It's
cool.
top notch. You
Very
got to go to
cool.
a
The
soccer
the
game.
Blues game is so fun too though. Like
Yeah.
people get really into it.
Yeah.
And on a nice day in the spring, the Cardinals games are really fun too. But man,
Yeah.
last summer I went and it was like literally the hottest day of the summer. It was like, or sorry, 2 years ago maybe. It was like 110 degrees, and
Yeah.
I like I was just soaked.
It's
Like
too
it was
hot.
so
Yeah.
uncomfortable. So, but somebody else brought me, and I was like, oh, I can't.
I'll go
leave.
if it's free. Yeah.
So, but
well,
yeah.
Well, thank you. And man, I'm so glad that you finally came on. And I know that there's a lot of people that are going to be really, really pumped about like getting to know you better. And I mean, you obviously have a lot of people that follow you and they look up to you. And so I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I hope you enjoyed sitting and chatting. Your second podcast.
Thanks. Yeah, this
second
one went
down.
better than the first one, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that you didn't. I feel like a lot of people are gonna wonder like how we met. Like, not that we need to go into it, but just a quick little story.
I mean, you can, yeah, you can tell them if you want.
Mark's like, I didn't want to get sentimental on the podcast.
Well, because like truly, like I'm, that's a story that you can tell. In my head anyway. I came in like and I had game plan. Like I don't, that I'm like I've been the focus of things. Like everything I get involved in, I'm the story. My story is the story, and I wanted this podcast to be about you. Like I know that us is a part of your life, but
yeah,
I wanted to really get to know you.
I appreciate that. I just thought it was an interesting tie because of like just our like how I even got connected with Omen in the first place. Like Lau's origin story is because she just found us on Instagram. My origin story is because we started dating.
Yeah, we started dating, and
I don't know.
And that's it. And then and then we
I think it's important to talk about from my perspective how the coffee shop kind of came to be, because that's relevant to like our community more so than like how we met or anything. But I think people like wonder like the pre-Omen like side of things. So Mark had always wanted to open a coffee shop, and while we were together we started dating while we were at First Form. That's where we met. And when I left in December of 2021, Mark was not planning on leaving. And then 6 months later, he had felt like he had fulfilled his purpose there and was looking for purpose outside of that building. And so he decided to leave, and was initially his plan to be my partner in my marketing business and help with social media with businesses in St. Louis. And then we were about 2 months into that, and it was going well. I mean, Mark was coaching people and helping people and getting new clients. And then he got the opportunity with our friend Tim and to open the shop. And Tim kind of helped us navigate like the building and secure our location and just guide us through the first few months. And yeah, it was crazy. He came home one day and was like, hey, so I listed the house and we're moving. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, and by the way, I need you to cancel your 9 a.m. tomorrow because I need you to walk through this space with me for the coffee shop. I'm going to bite on it either way, but I was at least going to give you the courtesy walkthrough tomorrow. Is the only time that the landlord can do it. I'm like, okay. So we did. And then we moved downtown, and within 6 months, Omen was operational, and boy, was that a doozy. We were here doing everything we could to get the coffee shop like up and running, and we had friends help build and friends help decorate, and it was crazy. It was a crazy few months, and I had no idea how much. I mean, when Mark told me like, hey, I want to start a coffee shop, I was like, cool, you do that, babe. I support you. I had no idea how much active participation was going to come from me on my end.
Yeah.
But that was just naive of me to think that I wouldn't be drawn into and involved in the business day to day, I think. But yeah, it's been cool. It's been really cool to see like the growth in the community around Omen come together. And, it's cool to see something that started as a little idea in your head turn into something that's physical, and walk into the shop and see it full, and see how you and the rest of the community have like been impacted by one another. And it's been a journey, man. Some days it's like so hard, but it really like has been cool to see it come to fruition, and hear about the plans that you have for it moving forward. And so anyway, I just felt like that story was
I'm really glad
good little anecdote.
I'm really glad that you're a part of it, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. Like, that's just the truth. Like, and I can say that about a lot of people too, but because like you were saying, like Brady building the bar and Seema decorating, and I mean, I could just go on and on. Joe painting the signs. And
speaking of Joe, where is Joe?
Yeah, where's Joe? Man? Joe's our friend. Joe is an artist, and he's a stereotypical artist. He just falls off the face of the earth for months at a time. Then he pops up. Hey, you need anything painted? Like, all right, Joe. But no, I wouldn't have been able to do. I still to this day, we're almost a year in, I wouldn't be able to operate day to day if you didn't chip in so much. So I'm really grateful that you're a part of it. And yeah, it's interesting when you say like seeing, watching something that just started as an idea actually come to fruition. I think about that a lot. I think I have this weird theory, but like with like law of attraction and manifestation and stuff, like I imagine that our brains are just like 3D printers, that work really slow. And maybe just imagining that helps me bring things to life. But that's kind of like what I feel about this. Like, this is something that existed in my brain. And now people don't even know about the future. Like, I haven't talked about it much, but like now I have this whole other thing that's I'm tinkering with it in my brain, and I feel like before we know it, it's just going to be a thing that, it's going to be really, really cool. So anyway, yeah, dude. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. I think people are going to be really excited about just the opportunity to hear from you, from your perspective, on the community, but also get to know you and who you are and what makes you you, from your upbringing to, just your perspective of yourself and where you're at in life currently. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, love you.
Love you too.